Steve, we spoke with Scott Kennedy in the last hour and he said, look, this is an ambassador who's known for his strident comments. I guess what's interesting to me is, do we know whether these are his views or whether they're somehow tacitly approved by Beijing?
Yeah, well, that's the big question. Is he a rogue ambassador from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from Beijing, or is he essentially parroting a new line from Beijing on those former Soviet bloc nations? We're talking, of course, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and to a certain degree, Ukraine, right? So if his comments, when he essentially told a French television network that these ex-Soviet states don't have sovereign status as independent nations, that's quite an inflammatory comment coming from a country, let's face it, China, takes sovereign claims quite seriously. I mean, I'm making a very loose reference, obviously, to Taiwan here, but it has obviously raised lots of concern in these former Soviet countries, and also kind of unravels not only Macron's sort of unilateral attempt to try and form a framework for peace talks between Russia and Ukraine that enraged fellow allies like the United States at a time when, of course, Beijing has this no limits partnership with Moscow. So it is a convoluted and complicated situation here right now. And it goes back to your question. Is this a rogue comment, or is this a new position from Beijing? Because let's face it, Beijing back in 1991 recognized these former Soviet blocs as nations as independent. So this would mark a new page in Beijing's viewing of these Baltic states. And let's also bring up the fact that Macron's own foreign ministry said it read those comments from the Chinese ambassador to France with dismay, quote unquote, and that they are seeking clarification whether this is a new position from Beijing towards those former Soviet bloc countries.
It's so hard to tease apart all the strands of rhetoric, Steve. And then, of course, there's your story from last week that the Biden administration is getting ready to prohibit American companies' investment in Chinese advanced technology. And, of course, that has China talking up self-reliance, and specifically Xi Jinping talking up self-reliance again.
Well, they've been talking about self-reliance in core technologies for quite some time right now, and they need to engage the private sector, a sector which, let's face it, in technology, Xi Jinping has kind of, suppressed with, anti-monopoly and regulatory action. So he's talking up the private sector now and also state-backed technology companies in light of this latest salvo from Washington. The Biden administration preparing to have an executive order that would essentially ban American investment in core technologies in China that have American managers in place in artificial intelligence, in semiconductors, in quantum computing. Right now, the Biden administration is working towards that executive order ahead of the G7 summit that will be held, by the way, in this part of the world, in Japan, in Hiroshima, starting May 19th. So behind the scenes, they're working to get support for that. This would have been on Friday Xi Jinping's first, public acknowledgement of that pressure again being amped up from Washington. He told a meeting Friday to Communist Party officials that they do need to support, the government of China needs to work to support the private sector, to work with the economy to build out those core technologies, and crack the code was the terminology that they said. So stay tuned to this page. Obviously, we're going to be watching this one as China and the United States get bifurcated, if you will.